What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of My Team Career here on F123. Today we are already into week 8 and we are headed out to the beautiful Catalunya circuit for the Spanish Grand Prix. But before we dive into the race weekend, let's just quickly discuss last video in case you missed it. We obviously battled it out in Monaco, and we had a great showing of defense, a really good qualifier, and picked up P8, and more importantly, got 4 points for the driver standing and the constructor standing, which were desperately needed fighting Williams, AlphaTauri, and we're trying to pass or at least match up with the Alfa Romeo and the Haas teams. So some great showings out in Monaco, a very good display of defense like I just mentioned, and now we're looking to build momentum and bring that into Catalunya to try and get some more points, or at least fight for points. That's kind of my goal right now. But looking at our facilities, we're going to purchase the fabrication upgrade for 2.25 million, just trying to upgrade our chassis department to spend more resources, get some more things going, because this is definitely the worst part of our car right now. The car still feels very heavy. It's a struggle around some of these circuits, and thankfully we get a beautiful major upgrade here with the new structure part coming in, which surely will help. Obviously we have Canada next race weekend, which is our home race. We want to make sure the car is performing. We've got a spark plug upgrade, which is massive because right now we actually have a pretty sizable or a pretty well performing engine compared to the people around us. I think it's nearing the top, probably third or fourth from the top. So as long as we can keep that going and continue to build on that engine, once we get the chassis, the aero team, all those parts squared away, once we get into the later stages, probably towards the summer break or just after the summer break, the engine, we need to make sure that's tip top, because then we can start firing on all cylinders. So just having a quick browse around the R&D departments here, trying to figure out what the best course of action is with the time frames of when we can get these parts in, because we don't really want to purchase something that'll come in too late. It's looking like the parts will come in after Canada, was a bit unfortunate, but we do have a nice upgrade package coming into this race weekend for Spain, as well as a handful of parts that you'll see in just a moment that were expected to come in pending any failures ahead of our home race in Canada. So some nice progress. We haven't had too many failures. We've had a couple crucial ones going into race weekend, some big ones that we were, really hoping for. We saw that ahead of Monaco, and we saw that ahead of both Miami and Imola. So we're praying that, things start to develop a little bit better, less failures. We had the two come in for this race weekend. Having a quick look here at some of the parts on the aero side, because that's developing nicely. But just looking at where we can maximize and benefit from upgrades, nice healthy mix of major parts, which are going to come in a little bit later and take a couple Grand Prix weekends to come in, as well as the minor ones, which we can kind of pick and choose which areas we want to improve on for which circuits we're looking at. But all in all, I am pretty happy with the car, where the car is at. It was a nice change of pace into Monaco. I felt like that was the first time this season that I really saw the pace and the chassis side start to at least feel like it's coming alive. There's still a long way to go, but I think going forward we're going to have a nice display here. And you just quickly saw there we have 3 more parts that are pending. So looking to continue the momentum here. We'll dive into qualifiers here out at Catalunya, and just looking for a really good qualifier similar to what we had in Monaco. We were just shy finishing P11 out there to get into Q3, so we're kind of just hoping that we can at least match that or get into similar position where we're fighting for Q3, because I think around Catalunya, if you could get into that qualifier 3 and get yourself in a good grid position, I feel like this is a circuit where I can kind of really use the car's benefits to my advantage. It's going a little bit wide there, touch a little bit grass as we're just getting familiar with the setup, but the car felt really snappy into this first lap here of Q1. I felt a really big difference. We got that big structure upgrade in, so it was the first time that I feel like in high speed corners the car is actually coming alive. And obviously I talked about it, Monaco, I think it's mostly due to the setup that I felt a little bit comfortable with, but in general, the car still feels really sluggish around those low-speed corners. But here in Spain, there's a nice mixture, or at least there's a lot of medium to fast corners that we can take advantage of. So going around this first lap, just trying to get are familiar with the setup that we chose, getting the tires a little bit warmed up, not looking to drop the fastest lap here. We have lots of time, 15 minutes left in qualifiers. But as we cross the finish line there, it is a nice position 6, and the time is not that bad. It was something that I was pretty happy with. As you can see, we'll bounce back. We're doing our second lap with only 46 seconds left, so we really didn't try to waste too many tires and get out there for 3 laps. But you can see we've dropped down into position 13, so we're still holding on. We're not quite in that drop zone just yet, and I feel like if we can put together a nice lap, which you can see at the top there, we're about 4/10 at this point, rounding the last few corners into turn 8, and we're still at that 4:10, so we're going to cross the finish line here, and that should be more than enough as we bounce up to P8 at this time. Obviously there's people bouncing behind us, but that is going to be enough to get us into that Q2. So step number 1 of getting into Q3, that top 10 shootout, is complete. You can see Max Verstappen, George Russell, all these guys are still dropping really good times, but all in all, being 9/10 off from these big boys, I felt like the car felt really good here. So looking to build on that. Unfortunately, our teammate Roy Nissany is still struggling again. I don't really expect him to show his teeth, or at least start to build on his own momentum and focus. His focus is going up. It's at a pretty good spot right now. It's about in the 80s, so it's starting to go up, but he hasn't really shown any momentum, finishing 19th or 20th in almost every single race up into this point. So I kind of need to start seeing him, because as the car comes alive, if we're battling some of those teams that we mentioned, the Alphas, the Haas cars, even the McLarens at this point in the game, I'm going to need a second driver who can help me get some points, because right now I'm doing it myself, and as you can see, it's been a struggle to get to those points positions. So Nissany's going to have to pick it up. He's bounced out of Q1 again, and here we are on our first lap here in qualifier 2, and the time is looking much better than it did in our first qualifying lap of Q1, and we'll round the last corner here, and it's going to be a 1:13.8, which is a pretty respectable time. We are currently up to P3, and that's with a handful of guys actually finishing their first lap. So you can see there, we had a purple sector 1 and a purple sector 3 in our first qualifying lap. That is a beautiful time. Our rival Lando Norris crosses the finish line and gets ahead of us. So some really low some really low times coming in here for our team, and that's going to be it. I went out again. I didn't really pick up any time, but we are going to get into Q3 for the first time since Jeddah, and we are in position 8, which is a glorious time there. That time held on 1:13.8, and we are only 7/10 off from the leader. So a beautiful display of driving here from Team Web Motorsports, myself, getting ourselves into Q3 and fighting on that grid to get as far up as we can, because I think this is a circuit where if you can start pretty high, I just mentioned it, you can actually get into a pretty aggressive position early in the race, and we know we've been able to defend throughout this, early going 7 rounds into this season. So I think this is a circuit that is really suiting the car, and I can't believe how much the car feels alive. We got those 2 important upgrades and 2 major upgrades going into this race, and they are paying dividends. Lewis Hamilton sends a beautiful lap, but it was barely, it wasn't even that much faster from our last lap there in Q2. So the car is looking mighty quick out there. We are driving here in our first lap of Q3. Carlos Sainz sets the benchmark at a 1:13, so that's much quicker than than our time showed. But very, very impressed, very, very ecstatic with where we're at. You can see the times are just flying in. That is Sergio Perez setting another beautiful fast lap, and we're driving pretty well out there. As we turn this last corner, we hit that last part of the final turn, and we drop in a 1:13.5. That is our fastest time here into qualifiers, and right now we're up into 6th position. So now we have one more chance, a minute left in qualifiers, to see if we can just build on that. I'm struggling just a little bit. I think the tires, I did not put on a new set of tires, so these are kind of what we're going with, and we set another purple sector 1, but a little bit wide there going into that turn there, and we find ourselves off touching grass, so lost a little bit of that time we made up in sector 1. But you can just see how tight this top 10 shootout really is. That's a purple sector, and we were only about a 1/10.5 up on our previous time. So everybody's improving out there. We're driving as best we can. That sector right there, sector 2, is something that I haven't really been comfortable with in the qualifiers, but we lost so much time there. And now as we round this final little twist and turn of this second lap, our last lap of qualifiers, we're pushing as much as we can. We'll round the final corner, 2/10 up, and we will cross the line into P5. We'll see if that'll hold going into the checkered flag here on qualifiers. Currently P5. As we round that out, that is going to be enough for a 5th position on the grid, our best qualifying to date. We are behind, you see Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, both of them 1 and 3 respectively. Carlos Sainz splits the Mercedes. But look at that, Max Verstappen finishes below us, as well as Charles Leclerc, Alonso, our rival Lando Norris. So it's going to be a nice fast start here in Catalonia. Let's head out to the grid for the presentation.
So many eventful races here in Barcelona over the years. Do you remember Max Verstappen's first win on debut for Red Bull here in 2016? 2 years before, we had the dramatic coming together of Hamilton and Rosberg going towards turn 4. There's always a treat in store as we head back to the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and a very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Perez, the owner driver, Leclerc, Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Ocon, Stroll, Hülkenberg, Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Joe, Bottas, Albon, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Nissany, De Vries, and Logan Sargent. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the grid lineup for the Spanish Grand Prix here in Catalonia, and it's going to be a tall task. We have Charles Leclerc lined up right beside us, and then the world defending champion of Max Verstappen hot on our heels. And we have 5 red lights, and now we're off for the Spanish Grand Prix as we get a beautiful takeoff here as Russell struggled to get his car fired up, and we are just flying down the first straight here as we go outside to inside on Lewis Hamilton, and now we're pressuring Carlos Sainz into turn 1. We have the outside, and we complete the move here into the first turn of the Spanish Grand Prix, and just like that, we are leading now. Oh my word, what a beautiful start here. Again, this is the second race of 3 that the corrupted files for the replays takes over, so unfortunately we cannot have a third-person look at that takeoff, but my oh my, that was beautiful there as we just zip past Perez, who seemed to not have his timing right as the 5 red lights went out. We passed through Russell, and it just looked like the car was just super quick and agile, going from right to left, left to right, past the Mercedes of Hamilton, past Carlos Sainz. We completed the move around the outside on that right-hander of turn 1, and we are leading our first ever lead into a race for this whole season. It looks like Sainz just tried to come back at us there just as we go around the outside, but we complete that move with no position loss, and this is just a sensational start for Team Web Motorsports. This is exactly what we were talking about. Got ourselves into a phenomenal position on the grid. P5 is something we could work with, and this car feels super quick, super responsive off that 5 red lights on the grid. Surely Sainz here on the Ferrari, much faster Ferrari, is going to look on the inside of this pit straight, and he is going to fly past us, starting on the hards. The only one that started on a different compound at the beginning of the race was Russell. You just saw the top of his car there. For a moment, it looks like Sainz just cut that curb, made a little bit of contact with us, but thankfully, no damage for either car, it looks like, and we are just continuing down this racetrack. Lap 2 now, and it's going to be a quick one out there. We'll have a quick look again at the start. Again, unfortunately, there is no third-person review, but you can see, yeah, Perez, that back left just spun on him, so we got a great jump, cut to the inside. Russell just looked like he was really slow off those softs, so I'm a little bit surprised that soft compound didn't fire up as quickly as he was hoping for, and it looked like Sainz just moved over to try and pinch off Hamilton on the outside there, and as he did that, we slipped to the inside, and he tries covering us, which leaves Hamilton a little bit up defenseless, and we slip in front of him and just complete the beautiful move round the outside, pinching him off, and all of a sudden, just like that, we were up to P1, which I'm a little bit speechless. That was such a sensational start, probably the best one we've had to date, and we are now still leading lap 3 here. And being on this hard, we're hoping. I haven't had a lot of luck with the hard compounds up until this point. Tire degradation has been a massive issue into this entire career mode so far. Even with the 2 upgrades that we have, there's a long way to go before I really feel like we're matching the AI use of their tires. You can see on the left there on the time chart, Russell on those soft compounds, go a little bit wide and touch gravel, which won't help with the tire degradation. Russell slips to the inside, and I don't think there was any contact there. It just looks like maybe he got a little bit of afraid to touch his wheels into the grass, but you can see he's just falling off as Lewis Hamilton gets a much better exit, hot on his heels, passes his teammate, and now Carlos Sainz on the hard compound also completes the move. So Russell probably wasn't expecting me to go offline there. That was a very wide approach into that turn, and our tires unfortunately caught a little bit of gravel, probably kicked some stones up onto the track. We do set another sector, green sector 1, so the tires are still okay up until this point, even with that off-track adventure we had. But I just felt like Russell had the inside line, but maybe he was going a little bit too quick. Didn't expect me to, go off the track and then have to re-enter. I believe it was a safe entry as Hamilton looks to pass us on that straight with a little bit of DRS once that flap opened up, but just brake late, pinch it to the inside, and just hope that we could stop in time. Thankfully, we did, and we get the car around this little bit of a initial start to Sector 3, and still doing a great job. I mean, you can see the guys are hot on our heels. There's about 5 guys all within a second, so a DRS train is going to be extremely hard to defend here. We're going to kick on the ERS battery, drain it as much as we need, because here we come 3 wide in just a moment as Sainz dips to the inside. Hamilton looks to go to the outside. We'll shut him off, and now we'll look to do the move on the switchback, but unfortunately that Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, we've talked about that Ferrari guys all season long, just looking super quick and left a little defenseless. We knew that, even with that beautiful start we just talked about, it was going to be very, very hard for us to defend all of these guys, a lap after lap with us just sitting in clean air, sure, with as much battery, but we don't want to jeopardize our race trying to defend some of these teams that are well ahead of us in the development cycle. So Carlos Sainz, Ferrari, gets up ahead. He sets up fastest lap of the race so far. You can see this is now Hamilton putting the pressure on us, and the same thing, just that DRS flap open, and oh my word, as Hamilton switches back to the outside line. I'm not sure if he had been in the braking zone at that point. It seemed like a little bit of a dangerous move, but we did try the switch back on him. It just came at me so fast, so super fortunate that we didn't have any contact there. Got away with it, slipped back to the inside, and we'll take that P2 back now into lap 8. Russell still on those soft compounds, just can't seem to fire them up, losing a little bit of grip, and he just hasn't been able to sort things through. But as we look at the map there, you can see Nassani is losing pace lap after lap, and he is now struggling just to stay in that position 19 where he currently is, as it looked like, I'm going to guess that's Logan Sargent's Williams car is putting the pressure on him. So going to need to see some better racing here out of our teammate if we expect to re-sign him here in about 4 or 5 weeks time, because as our car gets better, as the R&D starts coming through, as we start developing the car to match some of these teams ahead of us, I'm going to need a teammate like we talked about earlier in this video. So nonetheless, we're up into lap 9 now. Our pit stop is coming here. It is a short race. We are playing on the 3rd lap time. We've talked about this every race, but now it seems Russell's finally getting some grip as our tire degradation on the hards is looking a little bit rougher, and we are side by side going into this beautiful right-hander, and Russell looks to make the move. He is 0.08 of a second. We bobble that curb again. Thankfully, avoid contact for the 2nd time battling Russell, and it looks like he might have made some contact with Verstappen as the Red Bull, the world champion, out of nowhere has caught up to us. He didn't get off to the greatest start. I was able to view those replays momentarily, and now Russell and Verstappen both make the move on us with that DRS flap open, and we are just kind of waving them by because, as we mentioned before, I can't really jeopardize my own race, just trying to do our best to defend. So we'll let them breeze by. You can see there was a yellow flag. I believe that was Lance Stroll, I think, spun off there. He's losing positions. I'm not sure if he's retiring. And now Russell just slows way down, and he cuts to the inside. And oh my word, that was so close. The 3rd time we almost made contact with the Brit. And my oh my, he just kind of got held up by Verstappen, who seemed to brake check him momentarily. He just throws on the brakes into that corner, and we nearly get caught out looking at the time chart as Lance Stroll does retire from the session. So unfortunately for him, he is out. We'll have another quick look. Like, yeah, it's just Verstappen slowed way down. I was caught a little bit looking at that who was retired from the race as the message pops up there momentarily. But my oh my, just lost the braking zone and almost slammed in the back. Lap 11 now, we will come in for our pit stop onto a much better compound. These hard compounds have really struggled for me in the early goings of the season, but pitting at this moment, we should come out back in the same position. You can see there's a handful of guys out there. It looked like Ocon went through, as well as one of the McLarens. I believe that was Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz, look at that side map there. He is miles ahead of everybody, so he should be able to pit here on the next lap and still come out ahead of us. So we'll get onto the medium tires. You'll see Hamilton and Alonso do go through. Hamilton was ahead of us before we pit. You saw that moment earlier where him and Sainz kind of flew by. So The attempt to maybe undercut him, not quite the greatest, but we are on a much fresher set of mediums. He would have already pit at this point, and we're looking to just put the pressure on, put some heat into this rubber, and see if we can't catch him here. We've been driving a really solid race. We came out in P10, and thankfully we were able to get ahead of Magnussen and Perez, who have kind of been battling it out. Perez getting stuck in behind Magnussen there, and now up to lap 13, all the pit stops are pretty much done. We are putting the pressure on Ocon, who's on the hard compound, so I actually do believe he will be pitting here momentarily, but we're getting a little bit of our elbows out, nearly made contact with the tires of the Alpine driver, Esteban Ocon, and now we're setting green sectors and on the heels of Hamilton. So even though we came out behind him after our pit stop, thankfully these medium compounds seem to be responding much better than the hard tires, and we are flooring it out here in Catalunya and putting the pressure to try and get ahead of Hamilton for that 4th position. Look at the time trial. We're not catching Alonso at this point. That Aston has really stepped up in these last few races. They started much slower than we saw in real life, but right now in this race, he's doing really well out there. He's driving a really solid race. The veteran that he is, he's 3 seconds up on Hamilton. But now, as we enter Sector 3 here, we are right on the tailpipe of Hamilton, about to open our DRS flap on this pit straight, so we should surely take over the 7-time world champion here in just a moment, as he seems to be struggling on the mediums. So for us, it was the hards that we were struggling on. He and Russell both on the different strategy, but both the softs and the hards for the Mercedes just seem so much quicker than us. But on these mediums, Hamilton is struggling out there, and now we are up in a position 4 for the Spanish Grand Prix, and doing wonders out here. Now it's just up to us to just try and, clean air. There's going to be some pressure. Ocon nearly catching Hamilton there, but we have some clean air now up into lap 14 to just kind of close, give us some distance between the two cars. You can see we're 1.4 seconds up on Hamilton at this point. So out of that DRS rain, they're going to be fighting back and forth. That Ocon looks extremely fast in that Alpine today, on the hard compound still, putting in a big stint 1. But now as we go up to lap 19, you can see the leaderboard has changed a little bit, as unfortunately Lewis Hamilton and George Russell are struggling to no ends. They are so far down behind Ocon. You can see Hamilton there, but I think what happened with Russell, if I remember correctly from the replay before it went corrupt, was he got caught up in traffic, and similar to Hamilton, the mediums just did not respond to him, and he is now caught up behind both McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. So it is the Ferrari of Leclerc who is now in position 5 behind us, followed closely by Ocon. And on this pit straight, I mean, similar to what we did with Carlos Sainz, we kind of just got to wave Leclerc by, because these Ferraris, man, I gotta tell you, this is something I did not expect, just based on watching real Formula One and watching the early stages of this season. But holy cow, this is about 5 straight race weekends where the Ferraris, pending any reliability issues that forces one of them out of the Grand Prix, they are looking so good out there. And it's great to see Leclerc come from behind here, because he had a great grid positioning to start the day, but it being 1 behind us, but he dropped far back, pitted early, and now he's making the most of these medium compounds, back up ahead of us now in a P4. And now we have to look behind us as Ocon on the hards is still right on our heels. You can see the gap to Russell is 5 seconds, so it would seem that the car that has fallen way off pace, and it actually looks like Hamilton, based on the map, had to pit a second time, as we just had a little bit of snap of oversteer as we missed the braking zone momentarily there. But lap 22, the penultimate lap, pretty much everything remained the same from this point on. I talked about it, but this is a circuit that just fits nicely, that once you can get into position, you can really just hold and defend as long as you possibly can. But what I'm really proud about, and the reason I wanted to stop on this last lap instead of the last lap, was, that was a tongue twister for you all there, but was because Leclerc is miles ahead of us in the R&D. He is putting up much faster laps than us in most races. But on this medium compound, I've really found my stride getting more and more comfortable. You can see the gap to Ocon, we just bridged to 1.4 seconds, and we are inside 2 of the Ferrari of Leclerc. So driving a beautiful race here. You can see the sun shining down on all the spectators in Spain, in Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. And yeah, it's just a beautiful race we've had out there. The times aren't anything to really gloat over. Our best is a 1:15.9, which at the end of the race you'll see is actually not a horrible time at all. But just doing a beautiful job setting the benchmark for where we want our car to be going into Canada. And I think overall, as we enter the last lap of this race, I'm really impressed. One, we beat our rival of Lando Norris. We out-qualified him. and we were able to not only beat him, but beat him by a sizable amount, which is phenomenal for the Constructors Championship. We beat pretty much everybody that is ahead of us that we're really fighting for, again, just because you see some battles here and there with Ferrari or Mercedes or the Astons or even the Red Bulls, because we were side by side with Verstappen there for a while. These are guys that we're trying to beat. That's our true race. So to see that we're so far ahead of them in this one, going into Canada, which I think will suit our car even better. It's one of my favorite circuits to drive. Again, not just because I'm a Canadian, because I absolutely love that track. But this is a really good sign. We have some more upgrades coming in after this race weekend. Back into the points for back-to-back races now, and not just into the points. We had 8 in Monaco. As long as everything goes right here, we're going to beat Russell by about 4 seconds as he is able to pass Ocon, whose hearts are finally starting to struggle. But we are going to finish P5 here in Spain and pick up a healthy dose of points, something that we desperately needed and we really wanted to achieve this race weekend. Everything went according to plan. We'll cross that checkered line, and that is it, as I believe Carlos Sainz wins the Spanish Grand Prix, but we finished 5th, and that was a beautiful race. Beautiful weekend all in all. Max Verstappen does come from behind. It's a little silly to give it to him considering he only finished 2nd from, what, P5 or 6? But that's it for the race weekend. Let's head out to the trophy presentation and see who took the podiums.
How do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, confidence breeds confidence. Success breeds success. They are very much enjoying a purple patch right now.
Here come our winners now, a thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again.
All right, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Carlos Sainz wins the Spanish Grand Prix, a homecoming for the ages, a beautiful showing there. His fellow countryman of Alonso right behind him in P3, but it's Max Verstappen climbing his way back into P2. So a beautiful podium there for some well-deserving homeboys. And for us, it's a P5 finish. So we'll take that every day of the week. That is a sensational finish, something that we are absolutely targeting for. We will pick up those 10 constructor points for the team. And now we're heading to our home Grand Prix in the next race weekend. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this. Again, before I thank you guys, I got to apologize for the missing third-person views and the race replay. Hopefully they fix that out after Canada. That's the last race that looks like it was corrupted. But that's it for me, guys. We are making momentum every single race weekend out here, and now we are turning our sights for our home Grand Prix. That is it. Make sure you guys click that like and subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you back here in the next race weekend. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Motorsport action, but with more races lined up, be sure to join us.